All right, this is the Nine Finger Chronicles podcast. My name's Dan Johnson. Today's guest, Mr. Brian Meyring. Did I say that right?
You did.
Dude, I'm so good. We were just talking before before we started recording about how like Alzheimer's. I know some people might not find this funny, but I'm going to. We're probably going to get like Alzheimer's or dementia or something because of all the head injury and alcohol abuse that we have done throughout the course of our lives. So it's coming, and it might be coming sooner rather than later. It's a joke, but it's probably not.
I don't know if it is, man. I might just sit here and like blank out.
Yeah.
Ask me a question and I'm just going to freeze.
What? I'm booting right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you play any sports like wrestle or football or rugby or anything like that?
No, I played baseball and soccer of all things.
Okay.
I went to a tiny little Christian school, and it wasn't big enough to have a football team. And soccer was the closest thing that I could play to football. Yeah. And I was not very good at it.
Yeah. I'm gonna judge you a second, so please don't get mad at me. But when I look at you, I do not see soccer player.
No. I mean, I was a little bit smaller back then, but I was definitely thinner. Yeah. I wasn't 6'6", 300 pounds playing soccer. That would have been pretty weird. I was only like 6'1", 240.
Just like this offensive lineman for a pro team, just out there trying to keep up the whole time.
Yeah.
You know what? You're going to be the goalie.
I wasn't. I was like the biggest, the farthest back defenseman, which makes sense because I wasn't the speediest guy.
Yeah. Have you ever been knocked unconscious?
No, I don't think so. I can't remember.
So the answer is yes. You just don't know.
I don't think I have. You've like crashed a couple things, like a 3-wheeler a long time ago. And I remember waking up on the ground. I don't know if I was unconscious or not.
Yeah.
I don't know if my brain just shut down while I was in the air or, one of those things.
We're going to turn you off to protect you right now. That's why they say drunk drivers, like whenever they get into a car accident, they tend to survive because their body is just so loose and relaxed, as opposed to someone who's sober. They have that moment to tense up and they fight or resist whatever's coming their way and usually get harmed more than someone who can roll a car. Like those dash cams where you see a police chase, the car flips like 15 times and the guy just like walks out of it going, "Hey, what's going on?" type of deal,
Yeah.
Yep. I went in the hardest that I've ever been knocked out was one time for sure. I was playing rugby in Okoboji, Iowa, and I went to go tackle a guy, and he brought his knee up underneath of my chin. I was like this, and he hit my jaw, and I went out. And the next thing that I know was, man, I want to say like 30 minutes later, probably, they had drugged me off the field or helped me off the field, sat me down in a lawn chair, and gave me a beer. And that is
that sounds about like rugby.
Yeah, exactly. And I wake up and I have a cold beer in my hand, and I honestly thought I was a spectator for a while. I was just like, "Yeah, go boys," and I look down. I'm dressed in in my jersey and everything. So, yeah, dude. Other than that, and then I got hit in the side of the head with a beer can once. That put me out. And then I think I got in a car wreck my senior year in high school, and I think I went out in that too. But other than that, just this, like they might donate my brain to science when I die and be like, "Dude, how does this guy even function anymore?"
I think my best brain injury was a car accident. I got T-boned in and my head broke the windshield.
Yeah.
And I flattened the steering wheel. I didn't realize it happened the way it did. It happened like I got T-boned right behind the driver's side door.
Okay.
And the car spun so fast that I hit the side of my head on the windshield. And then it didn't knock me out, but I got out and opened up the door to the other car, and those guys were having a rough time because they gotten blasted in the face with the airbags and stuff. But
so you were like under the windshield on the dash type of deal.
Yeah. Like my arms like flattened the windshield or flattened the steering wheel, and I hit my head on the ceiling, and I remember hitting it. I didn't know it at the time. I found out when I looked at the car, and the windshield was broken in the big circle where your head should hit it.
Yeah. That's crazy,
that was fun.
Dude. Yeah, dude. Yeah, we were at senior skip day, and me and my buddy, my senior year in high school, had way too many beers to drive. And we were driving down a gravel road, and I was looking, I was looking at a CD case, looking at the numbers, because back in the day, everybody took their radios out and they put their CD players in. They bought a CD player. So my buddy had this 1990 a 1990 Ford Ranger, and his older brother was a mechanic with a paint room. And so he made it like a two-tone, man, what color was it? It was like purple and white. It was white on the bottom and purple on top, I think. And I'm looking at this CD player, finding what song to play. And my buddy goes, shit. And then the tail end of his car just goes, whoop, because we were driving down, not paying attention, this road, and then there was a sharp, right turn, and we did not make the turn. We just kind of went straight, but at an angle, because he tried to correct it, and then it was just like a hot dog rolling. It was gnarly, dude. And then we left the scene of the crime. The cops followed my blood trail through cattle pastures to try to find us, and then finally, like, we waved down a farmer, and he took us to where the party was at. By then the party had been blown up, and then a girl from our high school took us to the ER where our parents were waiting there, and my mom tried to fight me while I was getting stitches. That's how angry she was at me. So no wonder my mom still is like almost a little pissed at me every time I see her, even though it's like 30 years after that.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Now that you're a dad, I think you probably feel a little bit of the same way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely am trying to, no one ever told me alcohol will ruin your life or kill you. Drugs will, they just expected me to know that. Like, my parents never abused alcohol. They never did drugs or anything like that. And here I am just trying to drink all of it at one time. And then, I don't know. Anyway, my dad was like, what are you doing? What are you trying to do? And I was just like, I don't know, man. Just trying to live my life, man. Like some rebel, who was oppressed for so long. Some white kid with a nice, like, his parents had nice jobs and shit. It was just like, oh man, you don't understand me, type bullshit. So that was,
I get that. I was like that because I got stuck in a Christian school, and then we just weren't rich.
Yeah.
I was just that sheltered white kid that got loose. I'm like halfway between that sheltered rich white guy and like an Amish person. I just kind of freaked out once I got freedom.
What do I do? So you just went through like several years of, what do they call that, rumspringer?
Where... Oh yeah, I was rumspringing hard, man. From like 17 to 25.
Right. I just was rumspringing, dude, all day, every day. Well, this is the part of the show that I call hard pivots, where we don't even fade out of anything. We just stop what we're talking about and go into the next topic. But thanks for letting me chat about those types of things, because if I talk about deer too much, I get bored, or like I don't know, I've done so many of these, I don't even know what to talk about anymore, right? So if I can have that little BS session up front, it really fires me up for the rest of the episode.
And hopefully with, all the head injuries, we'll get lost into some rabbit trail that gets us into some more fun stories.
Fucking head injuries. Love it. All right. Before we do, though, my good part of my brain is telling me I have to thank the partners of the Nine Finger Chronicles. So if you're looking for a badass I'm going to keep them short. I'm gonna just do the explosion advertisements right now, and that is, if you're looking for a badass broadhead for the upcoming season, go check out Wasp Broadheads. Go to wasparchery.com. Discount code NFC20 for 20% off. Next on the list is Vortex Optics, rifle scopes, red dots, spotting scopes, binoculars, rangefinders, you name it, they have it, along with all the accessories you need for your optics. VortexOptics.com. Next on the list is Code Blue Sense. I just got a package downstairs from them yesterday that my boy opened up without me knowing. And I walk into the door and there's all this packing material along with like rope-a-dope mock scrape kits, scent elimination products, and like a whole bunch of different stuff. So I was like, hey, you cleaning that up or am I? And he's like, Dad, I got to go outside and play. So I cleaned it up. And so codebluesense.com, discount code NFC20 for 20% off. Next on the list is Reveal trail cameras. Now I'm going to tell you this is necessity. Watch out, or just pay attention for what is coming from the Reveal in the next month or so. I think by this time next month, you're going to start seeing rumblings of some the new cameras that are coming out, dude. And they're just, the thought of them and how much battery life they're going to have for their cameras is bananas. So go check out tacticam.com/cameras for their current cameras. And they probably don't want me saying this, but if you're thinking about buying a cell camera right now, hold off just a moment. By the time late August or late July hits here, early August, they're probably going to have their new product line out, which is going to, it's going to be impressive. So tacticam.com/cameras, go check them out. All right. Michigan. You're from Michigan, huh?
Yes, sir. Born and raised.
Haven't
left.
Right. Have you been, are you one of those guys who has been in the Michigan hunting culture your entire life?
Exposure, yeah. My dad was a hunter from like growing up. The earliest memories is him having like a little buck hanging in the garage and going out there and wanting to see it and touch its tongue and stuff. And
yeah,
I for part of my life, like growing up, you always idolize your dad and want to follow in his footsteps and stuff. And then we had a family property and, went there every, November 15th for opening day and all that, that hunting camp stuff. And then through college and stuff, I kind of got away from it because I didn't have a great place to hunt. It was just a bunch of dank bucks that we would have, and that didn't really interest me. And then I got married to the farmer's daughter, and that opened up a lot more opportunity with some decent hunting. And then I kind of got back into it.
Yeah. Did you marry her because her dad owned land?
No, that was like one of the extra benefits. Like, she's pretty smart, funny. Like she had the whole package and then some.
Okay. Oh, so she's the total package.
Yeah, it's like I don't know how like a D+ got like an A+, but it works out in my favor.
You must be really nice.
Yes, I'm funny. That's it. Yeah. I'm not even nice.
That's funny. Okay, so did your dad see? Like, I just had a conversation on a podcast that is going to be launched previous to this one, where we talked a lot about the hunt camp culture, and how people coming together and having their gun camps and hunting camp and meeting together, and they all drag the deer out, so forth and so on. Was your dad part of that culture when you were a kid, where like maybe the uncles or his buddies got together and did that?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, he didn't really like people, so he like preferred bow hunting. Yeah. But like, because that was all we had, he had to just deal with it. So, I mean, it was one of those, we had like a dry deer camp, which I think is rather rare, or they drank and hid it from us. I'm not sure, but
interesting.
It was, we were, it was like penny poker, and either you were freezing if you were like sleeping on the main floor, or like roasting if you're in the attic in this crappy little like, I don't know, 20 by 30. No, it isn't even that big. It's probably like 12 by 20 cabin with just insulation on the walls. It was just a glorified box blind with like running water.
And then some cots and some a loft in it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. A bunk bed, some nasty, stinky old like couches that were around, like a 1960s table with the metal frame chairs and just some electric heater that was very inefficient and rattled every time it ran.
But dude, the fact that you can sit there and go through the details of that.
Oh, I can still smell it.
I know, is what makes it awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Is what makes it awesome. I had a Boy Scout camp that I would go to every summer when I was a kid. And they had this big cabin. It had no air conditioning in it. It had no heat in it. It was just kind of like that. It was bigger than that, but you could, whenever we would walk upstairs to go to bed, you could smell the dust and like the metal squeaky cots. You would unroll this old, like sometimes there'd be baby mice in them, where you would unroll it and so like someone would find mice and they'd walk to this door or out this window and like fling the baby mice out before you laid in it. And so I can just remember those smells and those sounds. But that is what you're gonna like on your deathbed. Those are the things that people probably think of. They're not thinking about things like, oh, one year I made $115,000, or you know what I mean, like,
yeah,
or like, I wonder if women are different. And this is no jab on women, but like how much energy they put into like the flooring or the house or like the pillows that match the couch that match the curtains. I wonder if women are like, I was so good at interior design. And then they die. I wonder if that's what they think.
I hope not. Sounds depressing.
Yeah, exactly.
They're probably thinking about, their parenting, nurturing, part of their brain. Not the part that drives us nuts, like having to make the bed before you get in it.
Yeah, exactly. So you were exposed to it young. You kind of did what I did, and for me it was high school sports, college, booze and women, and a little bit of rugby sprinkled in there, and then I didn't really get back into hunting until college was over. Right. I mean, I did some hunting in college. I actually probably did more pheasant hunting in college than I did whitetail hunting. A lot more fishing and things like that. But then I started to get back into it. When you started to get back into it, how old were you?
It was like 2019. So whatever that is, 34 or something like that.
Okay. 34. And so was this because all of your buddies were doing it, or was this because what was the reason why you got back into it?
All my buddies had been doing it. And I did, like, this whole time I was pretty consistent about like just being like a rifle hunter.
Yeah.
When I say get into it, I mean like not just show up with a semi-sighted in gun on November 15th.
Yeah.
Like that was a constant the whole time. You'd always go someplace to rifle hunt. Not seriously. You would sit in a box blind. I would build a nice box blind so I was comfortable.
Yeah.
But there was a big deer that I'd had on camera for multiple years, and I finally said, well, I should probably just stop sucking at hunting and then maybe be able to kill something decent.
Yeah.
And then job changes opened up, and I had more time a lot of time to walk around and listen to podcasts and get informed on how to not be an idiot, and then put those things I learned into practice and find out most people are full of crap, and then like narrow it down to like, all right, this is what works for me.
Gotcha. Okay. And then is that when you picked up the bow and started becoming a quote unquote bow hunter as well?
Yeah, I think I got my bow in 19.
Okay.
I had crossbow hunted, which is probably your favorite part about me.
That's why you're here, to
previous.
be honest with you. That's why you're here.
Hey, man, it was my gateway drug. So,
but that's the thing. Like, that's cool because honestly, most people pick up a crossbow and they stay crossbow, right? Because ease of use, right? This is interesting. Why did you start with a crossbow and then go to a compound?
Because I was poor and someone gave me a crossbow to use.
Yeah.
So my buddy we kind of had this, traveling, what is it? The sisterhood of the traveling pants thing with a crossbow.
Yeah.
So one guy used it. I don't even know if they ever used it because it was pretty unused, but I got it. I had to do a little bit to it to get it running. And then I used it and then I passed it on to the next guy and he still got it. So that was the main thing, like buying a new bow. I didn't have an extra $1,000 laying around to really put into it at the time. So I had a free crossbow. I used it for a couple of years. Then I bought a used bow and then because after I shot that buck with that crossbow and then I was on that was the first time I'd met you. You let me do a podcast about it. It was pretty terrible. But after that, you kind of tell people, and then there's like this, it was a crossbow. So it was like this shame I felt upon myself of killing a deer with a crossbow. Maybe not shame, but like when you tell somebody you shot a deer with a bow, or you can tell them that you shot a deer with a trad bow, it kind of levels up the interest of the story, or like the coolness of the story. I don't know if coolness is the right word, but
why do you, that's very interesting to me. Like, I wish I could dive into the psyche of whatever person tells that story because, I've had it, I've done a lot of interviews on this podcast and I'll get into a story and the story gets real good and the guy's telling it. And then somehow during the peak of the story, you find out that it's shot with a crossbow or a rifle, and the entire tone of the conversation changes. And I don't know why that is, right? Because I shouldn't care, nor should the guy who killed the animal, right? Shouldn't care. But when you start, he's like, and then you say the question, like, how far did you shoot him at? And with a rifle is like, I shot him at 320 yards. I'm like, oh, so thermals didn't matter, wind direction didn't matter, like all those things didn't matter in this story. And so I don't know why, but it's not that. It is not the person who is getting told the story. It's the person telling the story. For a brief moment there, it's almost like they go quiet. There's a hesitation. There's a pause there where they go, yeah, I shot him with a crossbow. And then you don't know how to end the story, right?
Yeah, it's like
just,
you're going on a blind date with this good looking lady. And then like an hour and a half in, you find out it's a dude. It's just a letdown.
Dude, I'm not.
Jeez, just choked up my coffee.
It's that. Jeez, I can't even get it out. Is that really what crossbow hunters feel like?
I think so. It's gotta be, dude.
Like you're making your move on this hot chick, and then all of a sudden it's like you realize that you're not the only one with a boner. And like, it's like, I shot it with a crossbow. Oh. Now, so that's the tipping point, right? Some dudes probably just keep going and they're like, like,
that's the difference between crossbow guys and archery guys.
Exactly. It's
if you keep going or you quit.
Keep going or you quit. You know what? And I'm to the point in my career where there's no way I'm editing any of this out. So I love it.
Yep.
So shout out to all the crossbow hunters. Hopefully you guys at the moment of truth make the right decision.
At some point that, you'll get there.
Yeah.
We've all made mistakes.
Yeah, we've all made mistakes before. Dude, I made a comment about crossbow hunters one time on Instagram. Everybody was supportive, right? They were like, yeah, we get it. Okay, yeah, cool. Then you go to Facebook, and Facebook was just like, if it's legal, or, like, if it's legal, what's wrong with it? I'm like, you're right. If it's legal, whatever you want. And there's like, it's a crossbow. The word bow is in the name of it, right? I'm like, okay, cool, right? Whatever you want, right? And I just got roasted. And it was, by the way, it was also the largest viewed video I ever launched on. It was all people on Facebook just roasting me, calling me a dumbass, and like, well, you think you're better than me because you shoot a crossbow? I'm just like,
I think it's good to have people on Facebook hate you, because I think that's not the part of society you want to be like hooked up with.
Right, exactly. I'm just like, dude, I don't know about crossbows, but I definitely don't like chicks with dicks, man. So I
Is it time for a hard pivot?
Yeah, it is. Because this is that brain damage rabbit hole you were talking about here, right?
But this is also more entertaining.
Yeah, exactly.
Than most of the stuff that people think we should talk about.
Exactly. Now I'm having brainstorm ideas about what I should call title this episode. So I have to focus. I got to focus now. Okay.
Well, just remember, I do work at a church, so keep it like PG-13. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. If I would have known that before, I would have taken a different approach to this. Because I am honestly, believe it or not, I'm trying to be a better person in 2026.
Well, that's good, dude.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, I think I should meet people where they are. You just shouldn't have to change for me. So you just be you. I'll be me, and we'll be us together.
Exactly. Hey, and if you're following the word of the Lord, right, the Bible and the teachings of Jesus, therefore the teachings of Jesus are for everybody, right? And you take the word to them. They don't have to change to come to receive the word, right? So there's that.
Just had a Bible study this morning about that.
Yeah.
The first people that heard the word about Jesus coming was the dirty, messy people.
Yep, exactly.
And that's who he wants. He doesn't care if you're messed up or not.
Yep. Yeah, I'm definitely messed up, and I'm trying hard every day. So that's the goal anyway. Hard pivot. Okay. So you were you started to get back into it. All right. The theme of Michigan hunters ever since I started podcasting was dudes, and take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt, but dudes bitching about the hunting in their state. Okay. So my question to you is, at some point of you making a return back to hunting, you started and kind of foreshadowing the rules and regulation changes and the impact that you and some of the guys that you hang out with had on the rules and regulation changes. When did you start to notice or compare yourself to other states, and talk about, like, dude, this sucks, or this we need to try to change the regulations?
So I kind of hang out with a group of guys that, outside of the guys you're talking about, just my home buddies. They're all quite a bit older than me, or 10 years, 20 years.
Yeah.
I was the young guy, and all of those guys had been into hunting and were like really serious bow hunters, turkey hunters, bear hunters. You fish you'd river fish, you lake fish, just huge outdoorsmen. And they had this group of guys that would go to they'd go to Nebraska every year for a week, and they'd shoot, 140, 50, 60-inch bucks. And I'm like, that's the kind of deer that I think everybody wants to shoot. Mm-hmm. When you see that, you understand. And my dad was a travel hunter way back. Like, he did some of the cool stuff before it was cool, like Western hunting. And he had, giant mule deer and stuff. So I knew that, like, what I was, like, the small window of deer hunting in Michigan that I saw was nothing like what these guys were seeing elsewhere.
Yeah.
Even though, like, I had it better than anybody with the situation I was in with having my father-in-law have quite a bit of land, mm-hmm. Like in 2016, like at that time I shot like a once in a lifetime buck, and that was mid 120s buck, something like that. Mm-hmm. That was like the biggest buck any of my buddies had shot. And that was a rifle one, so let down. Mm-hmm. Wasn't a crossbow, at least there's that. But, that was like 120-inch deer was like a once-in-a-lifetime buck at that point. 2013 was when the APRs in the Northwest 12 went into place. Mm-hmm. And part of the situation that there was a good deer there, my father-in-law had timber harvested, so that helped that situation too. But that was like the biggest deer I had ever seen in my life at that point. And when you start seeing that, like, that was 3 years after the regulations changed. And then fast forward to 2017, 18, 19, and 20, that was when I was chasing this next deer that was a once in a lifetime deer, which ended up, being in the upper 140s. So then you're starting to see, like, all right, these are the kind of deer that like these guys are able to chase outside of Michigan. And I don't know if that was necessarily like because of the changes, because there was already, like, we were doing 1 buck, 4 on a side, self-imposed rules on that farm. So, but you could see the results from that, and the results of, in that neighborhood, people pounded does. So, like, I know I'm for all these regulation changes and stuff. It's not going to affect me as much, but all my buddies who kind of quit hunting here, that's the guys that I'm hoping their hunting gets better.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you kind of look around, you say, dude, Michigan could be better. The devil's advocate in me wants to come out and go, okay, if you're comparing Michigan to Iowa, or Michigan to Indiana, or Michigan to probably even Ohio, Michigan has at some point even quadruple the amount of hunters that hit the landscape every single season compared to, like, Indiana. Like, I think Indiana has 200,000 hunters or something like that hit, and then Michigan is like 3 times that potentially, right? So just this massive amount of hunters. I think Michigan is only second to Pennsylvania. Well, I don't know where Texas is at. Yeah. But Texas is its own different animal. But yeah. Pennsylvania, then Michigan, right? I think that's what it is. And so when you have, if you're trying to put together some kind of equation, right? And the equation is better deer hunting, which is always a gray area because it's not black and white. Like, we want X. We just want better hunting. Okay. But then you have to add into this equation the number of hunters. When you guys started having these conversations and it went from complaining and bitching to actually rallying people to come together to get a foothold in, what did that look like?
Well, it kind of came from, like a podcast I did with you in 22 or 23, this weird dude started talking to me, and like, why are you talking to me? And ends up, he was hunting the same deer that we were talking about, and it ends up being Nate Roosevelt. Mm-hmm. So we were hunting in the same neighborhood. Eventually that weird guy became a good friend with me. And then, he was on the Michigan Wild on your network, and then this last year his life changed and he wasn't gonna be able to do 52 episodes, so he coerced me and 2 other guys to kind of help with putting a podcast together. And between Nate and Tony Fellows and Skeeter Beckman and myself, we started kind of paying attention to all these regulation changes and starting to go into NRC meetings and stuff. And you started to see, like, hey, these guys, the NRC and the DNR, like, that we've been complaining about for years and years and years, at least when I was there, the people were willing to listen, and they seemed to be like, not what I had pictured all my life while I was complaining in a barn with all my buddies.
Right. Dude, I'll tell you this right now. One of my pet peeves, and this is for every hunter in every state in the country, is when someone blindly goes, hey, I hate the DNR. The DNR's stupid. They make dumb decisions. They don't know how to manage deer. I'm like, what are you doing? Right? What are you doing? Oh, nothing? Oh, okay, cool. Right? But you're going to bitch. It's like people who don't vote but still complain about politicians, right? It's bullshit. Okay. And so that's gets me fired up, because after talking with wildlife biologists, after talking with how the state manages wildlife, they put in a lot of work, and they do make changes to benefit not themselves and not the outcome of what, like, I get it. There has to be deer on the landscape in order to have a hunting season, right? But the DNR have all these things that they have to, like, micromanage or macromanage or do all these things in order for that to even happen every single year. Like CWD comes through and in certain areas wipes out a big chunk of deer. Well, who's going to bitch? Oh, there's no bucks. There's no big bucks here. Well, number one, you're shooting all the higher end deer, and EHD or CWD or whatever is also taking out the higher end deer. Right. So now you have a deficit. And what do people do? They don't even care about what has been talked about. They just blame the DNR or the state for mismanaging the resource. And
it's never the hunter's fault.
No, never.
No, they make no impact. Only wolves and DNR make impacts on numbers of deer.
Exactly. Or if you go to Nebraska, it's mountain lions. It's there are 52,000 mountain lions in the state of Nebraska just going wild right now on the deer numbers. So I don't know. Maybe it's true. I don't know. But so anyway, that's my soapbox rant about people, putting down the DNR. What was your take on that when they were brought? So you had all this bitching that was taking place. It's time to come together and start to make something happen. After the rallying and the, organization happened, and you started bringing the DNR to the table, what were they saying in these conversations?
The DNR?
Yeah.
Well, that was the interesting thing. I don't know if the NRC started it or the DNR, but there was like this group of citizens that got together and were talking about proposing ideas. And then the DNR got along with them, and this was 22-ish, I think. And I think it was the DMI, Deer Management Initiative or something like that. I don't know. But they started getting together, putting these ideas for regulation change. In that same time, the DNR, I believe, like, followed up and kind of said the same thing. Like, the DNR was in favor of these changes. I don't remember what all the changes were from that time period, but and then it came to the NRC that year, and like they just crapped on everything and said, nope, we're not going to listen to one thing. We're not going to change anything. And
the NRC,
sort of the NRC. So that's our Natural Resources Commission. They are the ones that that they choose the regulations for the take of game. So there's like 3 players involved. The legislators can control some things. I think like the tag structure, I think they control
allocation,
somewhat.
Like how many tags can be handed out throughout the course, like the big number, right? Like 32,000 tags can be handed out this year in Michigan. That's a made up number.
So I think like if the DNR wanted or the NRC wanted to change, we have a tag structure of $2, like a doe tag or a single buck tag. If they wanted to eliminate one of those options, they would have to go through legislature for some reason. I don't understand why, but that's like the things that they can control. There's also a bill going through that's been passed by the House and is sitting on the Senate right now waiting, and that's for whether we can bait or not.
Okay.
So that's one thing that the legislation's trying to bypass the NRC and the DNR because people want baiting. I think maybe that'll get them votes or something. I'm not sure.
Interesting.
So there's like those 3 different structures that kind of are all working together to create what we have for our regulations.
Okay. What so it's like a circle, right? You got legislation, you got the NRC, and you got the DNR. Before, were these 3 groups of people talking to each other at all?
Yeah, I think this is all the legislation. There's always some dude from like the governor's office there. So he's whatever. I don't know what he does. He just sits there quietly and just writes things down. So the NRC and the DNR always have they always have discussions once a month about different things going on at different times, whether it's deer, whether it's coyotes, whether it's fish, all this stuff. So they're always in communication. And then every 3 years they have a regulation cycle, and that's when these changes get brought up.
Right. Okay. All right. So here's the way I felt after listening to all these people get together. Well, let me take a backward step. I got to watch the YouTube clips, the Instagram reels of people in not depositions, but in front of the DNR, in front of the NRC, reading off a piece of paper about what hunting means to them and why they need to propose some kind of change to make it happen. Did the masses of Michigan come together and organize we want it to be a $1 state first? Or was that, or did that come from the 3 amigos to the masses as a potential change to the rules and regulations? Who said that first?
So from that, whatever it was 3 years ago, they changed the DMI, the Deer Management Initiative. The DNR liked that idea, so they got together a group of, I don't know how they selected them, but citizens, and they got a deer advisory team. So this is the people's voice, and then the DNR was going to do all their homework and all their whatever math and stuff to try to compile what they think the strategy should be.
Yeah.
And then both of those 2 entities submitted to the NRC, here's what we think you guys should do. And then it's their decision to do it or not do it.
Gotcha.
So it was somewhat from the people, like a small section of the hunting population, the DNR, and those 2 were aligned really quite closely with the regulations that they were putting forward. Yeah. There was kind of this initiative, Josh Arbogast with, I think it's called the Michigan Whitetail Project, and they were trying to consolidate. All right, instead of having 14,000 different, here's how we followed solution. Let's get behind one main change, and then let's put that forward and get some solidarity behind that. And then the DNRs, and that was this $1 rule thing that this is sort of a grassroots thing of just a bunch of random people meeting each other and starting to talk on Instagram and podcasts and stuff.
Right.
And then that kind of grew legs, and then the DNR actually offered, like, let's do both $1 and APRs, and that was what was submitted to be decided on by the Natural Resources Commission.
Gotcha. $1 and APRs. Okay. Going back, not only do I know some people who live in the APR portion of Michigan, but you do too. Yep. And that actually did have a good impact on that part of the state. My buddy told me, like, he's like, after 2 years of APR in the county that that it was implemented in and he hunts in, he was noticing bigger bucks, period. Right? Just like maybe not quadruple the size, right? Not like a Iowa 170 walking around, but that 90 incher is now 110, or that 110 incher is now 125, or some, along the lines. You got that next year of growth before people could started shooting them. And of course, deer slip through the cracks, and then you have that deer who slipped through the cracks. Now people are dude, I had a 140 on camera this year. Holy shit, what happened? Like, this is crazy. And then they go back, and then the people who bitched about the APRs being implemented are now starting to see the results of it, and that shuts them up, right? Yep. Because they now have bigger bucks on their farms and properties too, right? So they're like, not much has changed other than I can't shoot a fork horn every year, right? And so they see that, they shut up, and then they see the results. Where did APRs get axed from the new regulation of only now being a $1 state?
That was, I don't know if there was an April meeting and a May decision meeting. Mm-hmm. I don't think in April. So in April, the NRC is supposed to say, here's what we're going to vote on next month. They made some amendments. I think it was in that day in April where they didn't continue the APRs in the stuff. I don't think it was even part of it. They just went with, all right, we're going to go $1. There was going to be some APRs involved. They were pretty ambiguous.
Yeah.
Between the April and May meeting, and there was some shady stuff that ended up happening later, but they still did implement some APRs, mm-hmm. but it was, I think, in an attempt to get people to buy a combo tag so that the DNR doesn't lose money by just people buying $1 tag.
Gotcha. All right. So what was some of that shady stuff that was going on?
So all of this, when it came down to like the decision making, it had to do with limiting. They were going to get rid of the firearm. So like the Zone 3, the Southern Michigan, mm-hmm. was always shotgun straight wall cartridges.
Yep.
That was one of the things they want to eliminate, that shorten the muzzleloader season and all. They wanted to shorten seasons to kind of create like more of a, oh, we got to do this now. We got to shoot our does, because that's the intent of most of this, is to try to harvest more does.
Yeah.
And there was a couple other things. And then all of this stuff was kind of set, and it was all brought to all the hunters that were there. There was a couple hundred people that went to this April meeting, and everything was talked about with $1 rule, shortening seasons, getting rid of the firearm, and that was pretty much it. And then the day before the meeting, it comes out that they're talking about earn a buck. Mm-hmm. Without, like, there was no structure. None of the hunters got to have a voice in that at all. So there was, I don't know all the details. I'm far enough out of it that I don't have all the friends in the background that can tell me all the dirty stuff. But
yeah,
that earn a buck rule just sort of popped up out of nowhere.
Gotcha. Which I look at, I look at this as a problem. If I was going to look at a problem, how do you solve a problem? Well, Michigan has currently $2, and people I guess, like to shoot a lot of $2, right? But what was it like? How many hunters every year filled their second buck tag was pretty low compared to
6%.
6%, right?
About 32,000 bucks are harvested annually on the second buck tag.
Yeah, across the entire state of Michigan, which also includes the UP, right?
Yep.
Okay. Also, Michigan, according to everybody you talk to, has a doe problem. Too many does on the landscape, right? So when I hear a proposition where it's like, dude, earn a buck, drop the buck, earn a buck.
It's earn a second buck. Sorry.
Oh, earn a second buck. Okay, yes. Now that changes.
Not earn a buck, earn a second buck.
Earn your second buck. Okay, which then doesn't solve the problem.
Correct.
Okay, I gotcha. Okay, that makes way more sense now.
Yeah,
okay,
sorry.
No, you're good. Earn a buck as a whole, to me, earn a buck, $1, sounds way more doable. Like, seems like it solves the problem more than just dropping off and making it a $1 state, right? Earn a buck to me seems like it solves a lot of problems. Guys are shooting an extra deer every year just to get their buck tag. Then they can still go out and harvest their buck tag. Why was that not like the option?
I think it had to do with the tag structure itself. I'm not sure on that decision. I know I don't think they could get rid of the combo tag, which is a 2 deer tag.
Gotcha.
So I think that was dead in the water because they would have to get legislation to change a rule that probably wouldn't get voted on for years.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I can understand that. All right. When you guys are sitting at the table, you're reading off your piece of paper about, what hunting means to you and why you're proposing this $1 rule. Was there anybody, because usually what happens is you have opposition there, and the opposition comes in and says, here's why I want to continue the $2 rule, right? Was there anybody from that side there voicing their opinions, expressing their thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know what the percentage was, but there was definitely a lot of people who were fired up about someone taking away their second buck tag.
And what was their reasoning for that?
A lot of the reasons have to do with, I'm going to be done hunting early. This is my right. How is this? A lot of it was selfish. How is it going to affect me? I've been doing this for 100 years. You can't take away something like that. It had very little how is this going to have a scientific impact on the herd as a whole? Most of it was just emotional response to angry emotional response to something being taken away from me.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, that's a pretty biased opinion.
Yeah.
I didn't really listen real intently on what everybody, but it's mostly this is going to affect my hunting. This is going to affect, my kids hunting, that sort of thing. You're going to shorten it. You're going to ruin deer hunting. Everybody's going to quit. I'm going to shoot 400 button bucks now, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So again, I'm going down the devil's advocate path here. When I first started listening to this and people saying, I want a $1 rule, it sounded to me like people were being now forced to only shoot $1. And if you want to keep hunting, then you have to shoot a doe, right? Whatever the case is there. But it felt like it then became about antlers. All right. And was this about antlers at all? Or was this more about balancing the sex ratio?
It depends on who you ask, I think the intent, the DNR put out what they wanted to do, what their goals for these regulations were. The goals were to level the sex ratio. It was to get a more balanced age structure. It was to harvest more does. I mean, obviously that's the balancing the ratio and limiting, trying to limit the amount of deer on the landscape to where it's a healthy, the herd will be healthier because of it. And one of those outcomes is going to be older deer with larger antlers.
Right.
So, there's a narrative that this is all about trophy hunting. This 1 buck rule is all about trophy hunting. And there's definitely people are behind it for that reason. I'm not going to say, boy, I think we have smaller deer, I'm in that boat. But then the argument too is, aren't you trophy hunting if you have to shoot a buck? Like, what's the difference between a 6-point and a doe? 20 pounds?
Yeah.
So, I mean, who's really trophy hunting there?
Yeah. Okay. The other thing that kind of messes with my mind a little bit is all this talk about the entire state of Michigan, blah, 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 1 buck rule, earn a buck, APRs, blah, blah, blah. It happens, right? People are jacked. 1 buck rule made it into the state, except for the UP. UP was left out of all of this stuff. Okay. Why was the UP not included in this? And this is me going, of all the places where an APR, an earn a buck, a 1 buck rule could have made hunting actually better, would have been the UP, and it was left out. What was the reasoning for that?
That was one of the commissioners from the UP, their amendment.
Okay.
So I don't know if they heard it from their people that he represents, because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, but I don't know if you've ever been up to the UP. I wouldn't want to take anything away from those dudes. They live, I mean, it's a hard life up there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then I responded to that by going, what's that have to do with the deer herd?
Nothing. It's about people at that point.
Yeah. Okay.
So I mean, that's the irony of 1996. We put in the Natural Resources Commission that was voted on by the people, so that they were supposed to make regulations based on sound scientific evidence. Because at that time, everybody hated the DNR and they thought they were doing a terrible job. Right. So is social science sound scientific evidence? I don't know.
Yeah. So long story short, enough people in the UP said, don't you dare implement any new rules
or the right people.
Or the right people. Right. Yeah.
Because there was definitely there was guys that drove, I don't know, 12 hours or something to come down. My favorite guy of the whole time, like his best point, like was this mulligan buck about, what are you going to do if you got a mulligan? I'm going to pull my driver out and I'm going to rip that sucker down the fairway and see what happens. Because that's kind of the mentality that a lot of people have. I got to get my buck out of the way and then I'll wait for a big one.
Yeah. And so, but then however many people didn't. So I don't understand how that makes sense. To me anyway, because there was such a small percentage of people in the state that filled their second buck tag anyway. So how does that make sense?
Well, how does what make sense?
The mulligan approach to it, where you're like, well, I'm going to get my buck out of the way. I'm going to shoot my forky, but then I'm going to wait for a bigger buck. But it sounds like you'd be waiting a long time based off of how people view the state of Michigan and there being no big bucks.
I mean, that's why it's only 6%.
Yeah.
It's only 6%. You know, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I know the second buck and the second buck is APR restriction for everywhere. So.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. All right. So the law's changed now. What do you expect as someone who is a big proponent of this change? You got what you wanted. Okay. You got a 1 buck rule. What do you envision? You know, obviously this year it doesn't go into play. It goes into play 2027. What do you expect the landscape to look like now in 2030? Or something like that, you know, the next handful of
That's
seasons.
A hard question. Because like right now, this is like effectively just a 2-year experiment. Like this reg change is only going to have 2 years under its belt before it's going to be reviewed and either continued or eliminated. So, we're going to have what's going to happen in 2026. Is it going to be like the last call at the end of like a wedding reception and everybody rushes to get their extra drink?
Yeah.
Are they going to just pound all, is there going to be a run on any legal buck? And how does that affect 2027? And then we have to make this decision again in 2028. So I don't know how it's going to affect it down the road. I don't know what to expect. I think there's some like questions that we got to ask ourselves and that we got to be looking at like here's my question. Is this going to like have a positive effect on like getting youth more involved? Like if somebody shoots their first deer, are they going to continue hunting through like a friend or like a kid or a grandchild, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
How is this going to affect public land pressure? I would think it would get lighter based on once you shoot a deer, the buck mentality, you're not probably going to go and hunt a bunch of does as hard as you hunt bucks. The people I think are going to be most negatively affected are the people who own a large piece of land by themselves. And how are you going to manage your herd? Like say one guy owns 1,000 acres, and with a new APR, there's a they're going to adjust how many does that we can shoot. Currently, we were able to shoot 10 does wherever we wanted to in the state. That's going to change based on location, and they haven't put any of that out. But doe numbers will probably be limited in the UP in the northern part of the lower. I don't think it'll be affected at all in the southern, but how is that going to affect things? If you can't shoot like a cull buck and you can't shoot 10 does, that those are the guys that kind of got it the roughest. But are they going to start inviting people onto their land? Maybe that gets more access to people. I doubt it. That's not human nature, but every once in a while.
Yeah, maybe. I see the guy who owns the 1,000 acres who maybe was hoarding it to himself. I look at him and go, he goes, bingo, bigger bucks next year.
Yeah, probably.
Just more, right? I can't shoot my two 140s this year. Well, I'll shoot a 150 next year then.
But that is not how the mentality of most people talking about that sounds. I mean, maybe there is some. I haven't really listened to them that much, but most of the guys are like big landowners. The ones that are speaking a lot are like, what the heck? Taking away. I got all kinds of land. I can afford 2 deer. I can handle, like, my herd can handle losing $2.
Yeah. That's only if he's the only hunter on that property, though. You know what I mean? So maybe he invites a buddy out, or I don't know. Like, it's a culture shock is what it is. Right. And so I look at this and I go, the next 2 years, which is crazy that are they going to evaluate it after the 2028 season?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So
that's when the reg structure gets redone, or that can be adjusted. So it's like, is 2 years even enough to even see a change?
Right. So let's just take mathematics for a moment. 6%. I did this a while ago. 6% equals what? $32,000.
Yeah.
Okay. So $32,000 will survive if nobody poaches, right? No one goes out and says, screw this, I'm still shooting my next buck.
I got it broke down here based on like what our buck to doe ratio is, which that's part of the hard part of trying to figure all this stuff out is we don't have great numbers. We have no idea what the buck to doe ratio is. But if 32,000 less bucks get shot, we have estimated 2 million deer statewide. At a 1 to 3 buck to doe ratio, that's 6%, 6.5% of all of bucks is the 32,000 that are shot. So we're going to have 6% less deer shot. If it's a 1 to 10 buck to doe ratio, that's 17.5%. You compile that over a couple of years. It's a lot more bucks.
Yeah. A lot more bucks, older age class. And then what happens is that 32,000 is equally distributed across the entire state, right? Which I'm guessing it's southern Michigan is there's more of that 32,000 shot in southern Michigan than northern Michigan, if I had to guess.
Yeah,
just because
significantly more deer are shot in zone 3 than the rest.
Right. So I'm guessing that has something to do with it. But outside of that, then you start to have this compounding interest of more bucks on the landscape, more bucks on the landscape. The only problem becomes is if Michigan's culture still does not shoot any does, even though they don't, like they shoot their one buck and they're out. I got my buck, I'm done hunting. Right?
Correct. Then I think that the NRC and the DNR will view this as a failure, because I think that was one of their main objectives, was to lower deer numbers in southern Michigan.
Right.
So when I look back, we don't have good data because we only started having like mandatory harvest reports in 2022.
Yeah.
But in 2022, let's see if I can find it here real quick. The Northwest 12, which had APRs, so that's the only thing I can compare it to. In 22, they were shooting almost 50% 1-to-1 ratio bucks to does.
Yeah.
Zone 3 was 45%. By 2025, that had changed, and both are right at 50% now. So they're right now zone 3, which is, I think, the main thing that the DNR and NRC are trying to help with the overpopulation of does. They're trending in the already good direction. And then if you make it so that they have to shoot a doe with this, I mean, there's going to be there's a test pilot that they're going to have in 2027 of this earn a second buck. So that's happening in 5 counties that they haven't chose yet. And then there's going to be 5 control counties so they can figure out if it's did anything or not. But that's what we're going to have to find out, if it's working or not. Like, if the average hunter, when they were filled out their reports once, 1.4 deer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe we change a part of that to the doe, instead of waiting. What happens now is there's a huge run on does at the end of the year, because everybody holds on to that buck tag, and then once all hope is lost, then everybody starts shooting does. Yeah. So that was part of the squeeze down of how long the seasons take. So they're hoping, all right, maybe that mulligan buck is a doe instead. Yeah. I don't know. It's just a scientific experiment, and that's what people need to keep in mind. Like, this is just a temporary experiment. Let's figure out if it works or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Do I think you need more than 2 years of that experiment? Yes, I do. Do I also think that it should be shut off no matter what at the end of it, if the rules are? No. I think you continue to change some things, like instead of just making it a 1 buck, make it a 1 buck, but an earn a buck, right? Especially in the higher population areas in the state.
And
I mean, it worked in Wisconsin.
That itself has some challenges with, I know the DNR always complains about finances are tight. And if you're trying to do this with like digital reporting, that causes some serious issues of, are these antlerless deer button bucks? Are they roadkill? Is it the same deer getting its picture taken multiple times? So they've definitely pushed really hard on the DNR to implement in their test pilot program. We need to have, you check them in person.
Yeah.
But there's still no care about a button buck being shot. So that's one of the problems we find with that situation.
Yeah.
So it's just, part of that is testing out, see if it works, see what sticks, throw a bunch of mud at the wall.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then if it doesn't work, then you try something different, right? You don't give up and go back to a shitty thing that everybody bitches about, right? You try the $1 rule. Then you try the earn a buck. Then you maybe sprinkle in some antler point restrictions. You have to, and I also don't think that you can do this for a state like Michigan, where the UP is drastically different from terrain, from food sources, from weather than Southern Michigan, right? Southern Michigan is Midwest. Northern Michigan is big woods. Like, there's two completely different environments there. And so both those different environments have to be managed differently, in my opinion. So I don't know. See, like Iowa works because Iowa is, for the most part, is all the same, except for most of the cover in Iowa is in Southern Iowa, right? And that's why what we do works for us, because it's kind of the same across the entire state.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a whole different world from, you drive 2 hours and it's very different.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. Kind of wrapping up here. What do you hope happens? Like, what's just, if you had one wish, what does that wish look like for this new regulation?
I'm hoping that I don't think in zone 2 we need a enormous like doe harvest here. I hope they harvest a bunch of does in zone 3 so I don't have to hear about CWD as much. And I hope that it does balance the age structure more. I want to see my buddies who have pretty much given up on hunting go back to being excited about going out hunting, getting back. They quit bow hunting because they'll just go sit out in a box blind with a rifle just because that's what you do on November 15th, and nobody's that old, like the older friends of mine, they're just not excited about hunting. So that's my hope, is that those guys all of a sudden get like this re-engagement into, hey, there's some deer I actually want to chase in Michigan. And granted, if they worked hard enough, they could probably find a place, but it's having the time to do that and, not being a terrible husband and father.
Right. Which is hard to do sometimes.
Correct.
Well, I hope what happens is that the hunting in Michigan gets better, and I hope that people start to like get fired up about it again, and Michigan starts to get some of its old gusto back, and it would be nice if all of a sudden Michigan, you start to see hammers being killed every single year too. So
more of them.
Yeah, exactly. So man, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to BS with me for a little bit about this, and hopefully the first part of our conversation didn't offend anybody, but if it did, whatever. And then also for Michigan hunters, man, just keep keep an open mind and know that things are not going to change overnight, and it's going to take some time to find the recipe to make Michigan better. So Brian, man, really appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks. If you guys want to listen to us four derelicts, it's Roam Outdoors podcast. Also, I'll be praying for your Alzheimer's.
There you go. Same to you, buddy. All right.
Thanks.
Yep. Have a good one, man.
See ya.